hamstringed Lebanon for the past 30 years at least. Iran is an anti-American country. They have been chanting death to America, death to Israel ever since the Shah fell. Now, you can make the argument that because we backed the Shah, who was also a dictator and who ruled with an iron fist, you can make the argument that, you know what, we had it coming to us. Maybe so, maybe not. But when a country chants death to America, you're not going to negotiate with these people. You're just not, okay? And for some reason, some in the media, both traditional and social, have actually taken Iran's side on this whole deal with the death of Soleimani. I can't believe I've seen this. Well, Soleimani wasn't a horrible man. He was just a guy who served his country, and the evil United States took him out. I can understand why some on social media would think that, because social media is full of common folks who aren't educated. I can kind of understand how the traditional media sources, some in the traditional media sources have understood this, okay, have actually taken Iran's side on this whole Qasem Soleimani assassination. There's three things, okay? It's either they are ignorant of the facts, they hate Donald Trump, or they're trying to get a rise out of people. Those are the only three reasons why anybody would say that the killing of Qasem Soleimani was a bad thing. Because Qasem Soleimani was a bloodthirsty butcher for the Islamic Iranian Republic. That, my friends, is a fact. Don't take my word for it. Research it. He killed Americans and American allies. If he were still alive, he would have killed more. Now, what you can argue is that America shouldn't be in that part of the world to begin with. That's a legitimate argument. I'll listen to that, okay? I'll listen to, you know what, we shouldn't have been there to begin with. But if you say that Soleimani was an innocent victim, you are, again, you're ignorant, you hate Donald Trump, or you're just trying to get a rise out of people for saying something outrageous. One of those three things, okay? Now, the whole hating Trump thing, I mean, Trump says, well, Soleimani was going to attack 4 embassies. He's never proved that. There's been no proof that Soleimani was going to do that. And Trump has lied about that stuff before. He just runs his mouth, okay? So Trump's his own enemy with that kind of thing. And while I personally don't care for Donald Trump, I think he's doing a lot of good things, but I don't like the way he's doing them. I didn't vote for him. I can't see a case where I will vote for him in 2020. But you just can't hate the guy. Now, if he would change the way he does things, in fact, if he would change, not necessarily change what he's doing, but change the way he presents them, and realizes he's no longer a reality television star, but the president of the free world, the ruler of the free world, the president of the United States, things might be better. Once upon a time, a long time ago, when I was a young man and I had my first job managing not managing people, but I would say managing a diverse group of people, I had troubles because they stopped listening to me. And the boss called me in his office and said, hey, what are you doing here? I said, well, I'm doing this, 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 and that. And the people won't listen. And he looked at me and said, well, you're doing the wrong thing. I said, well, no, I'm doing the right thing. I'm implementing this, 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 and that, and that's what you told me to do. He said, no, you're doing the right thing, but you're saying it in the wrong way. You have to say things to get people to understand and agree that what you're doing is the best for everybody. So you have to sell them on this, basically. That's what Donald Trump does not do very well. He does not, he says things in the wrong way. So it's not what he does quite often, but it's how he says it, okay? But I digress. I'm getting off the topic. I don't want to do that. The Iraqi government did not like us killing Soleimani and Abdul Mahdi al-Muhandis, who was an Iraqi paramilitary leader backed by Iran. They didn't like the fact that we killed him via drone on a road leading to the Baghdad airport, okay? They didn't like that. In fact, the Iraqi parliament voted for the United States to leave Iraq. That's what they've said. You need to leave now. We voted. We're a freely elected country, which, by the way, for the most part, Iraq right now does have free elections. But they say they want us to leave. That's a parliament. Their parliament has voted a resolution in to say the United States needs to leave, okay? Now, that still has to be voted on and signed by the prime minister before it becomes law. But Mike Pompeo, who's our Secretary of State, he says that's not going to happen. Now, Mike Pompeo says that through Donald Trump, of course, because he's President Trump's Secretary of State. Pompeo says we shouldn't leave, but in my opinion, you know what? If they really do want us to leave, I think we should. Now, again, Pompeo is Trump, and Trump changes his mind more often than a 5-year-old playing with 100 Hot Wheel cars does, okay? But if Iraq really does feel that we need to leave, and through their legislation says, look, we've passed this law, we now need for you folks to leave. If that's what they do, if that's really what they want, because if Trump changes his mind as much as a 5-year-old boy playing with 100 Hot Wheel cars, the Iraqi leadership changes their mind twice that often. But if they do decide that's what they want to do, we should sit down with Iraqi officials and see if they really mean it. If the answer is yes, then we should leave. If they're just posturing themselves to get Iran off their back, that's one thing. But if they really do want us to leave, then yeah, we should leave in a structured, orderly fashion. Now, you may say, well, how strong? What you just said is contrary to everything else that you've said in this essay. Absolutely not. I think we should leave. But what you people need to do, for all of you who think, well, the United States needs to stop being the policeman of the world, especially in that part of the world, we need to consider what may or will happen in that part of the country after we leave. Now, if you remember, I said that the Iraqi parliament has voted in a resolution that says that the United States needs to leave Iraq. That has to now be officially voted on and signed into law by the prime minister, which isn't going to happen anytime soon. Do you know why? Because Iraq does not have a prime minister. He quit back in November. Yeah, he just quit. The country's prime minister, the guy who's like our equivalent to the president, he just quit, and they haven't gotten around to putting a new guy in. Okay? Elections in Iraq have been disastrous. If you think that we're splintered in this country, look how things go in Iraq. If in Iraq, if your guy isn't elected, you riot and kill the opposition. That's why nobody wants to be in charge there, because they get killed. Most Westerners consider the Middle East all one people. Why? We should just let the people in the Middle East rule themselves. That couldn't be more wrong. People think people in the Middle East are like Americans, because all Americans, for the most part, think very similar. Some things they may think differently on, but for the most part, we think the same thing. Okay, we think our core beliefs are the same. It's not that way in the Middle East. The Middle East used to be called the Near East, by the way, but we call it the Middle East now, and for semantics, we'll just use the term Middle East. But let me explain to you how things work in that part of the world, okay? Some of you may know this, some of you may realize it, so please bear with me. Some of you don't, so bear with me too. Most of the Iraqi leaders are Sunni, but most of the people in Iran and Iraq are Shiites, okay? But many of the Iraqi leaders are Sunni. Many of the Iranian leaders are Shiite. In fact, most of them are. Now, what's the difference between a Sunni and a Shiite? They're both Muslims. They don't recognize one another as being Muslims. They say, no, we're the true Muslims. No, we're the true Muslims. Sunnis and Shiites don't recognize one another. Well, the Shiites, after the Prophet Muhammad died, the Shiites say that Muhammad's cousin, he was his cousin and his son-in-law at the same time, so that's another story for another day. But they say he took over Islam from Muhammad. The Sunnis believe that Muhammad's advisor was the next leader of Islam. Okay, so the schism took part after Muhammad died. Okay, the Shiites hate the Sunnis hate the Shiites. Iraqis are Arabs. Iranians are Persians. They're a different people. And the Persians hate the Arabs, and the Arabs hate the Persians. So Shiites hate Sunnis, Sunnis hate Shiites, Persians hate Arabs, Arabs hate Persians. Okay, you got it? Okay. Iran and Iraq fought a war in the 1980s, a big war. When was our last big war that we fought, where we lost a lot of people? Vietnam. Depending on what sources you read, we lost anywhere from 52 to 55,000 troops in Vietnam. That's a lot of people, friends. In the Iran-Iraq war in the 1980s, 1.5 million people died. 1.5 million in that 8-year war. Now, militarily, Iran has the stronger army. Why? Let's go back to the earlier part of the essay. Because they have more people. Iran also has the 9th largest air force in the world. Okay? Now, they have about 350 planes, but they're all old. Many of them are old F-series planes that the Shah bought in the 1970s. And basically, we've not sold them spare parts for those planes since the 1970s. So imagine how they fly. Okay? Iran wants to rule Iraq. Iran wants to revitalize the old Persian Empire. Now, Iran cannot stand up to the U.S. Army. They cannot do it. They have a lot of troops, but they have the 9th largest air force. Okay, that doesn't mean anything compared to us, who has the largest, and they have virtually no navy. So basically, they can't stand up to the U.S. Army. If Iraq declared war on the United States and we decided we wanted to put the hurt on Iran, it would take less than a week before they would be done. Okay? And Iraq knows that. They cannot stand up against the U.S. Army. That's why they back down with all this retaliation rhetoric. Well, you killed our guy Soleimani, so we are going to unleash havoc on the U.S. like you've never seen before. Yeah, they lobbed a couple of bombs into a military base that didn't even hurt anybody, and now they're done. It was a bunch of bullshit because they know that they can't stand up against the U.S. military. Okay? Now, getting back to the original reason behind this essay. Should the U.S. leave? Should we stop being the policeman in that part of the world? If the policeman leaves, if we leave, Iran will fill the void. Sunnis will kill Shiites, Shiites will kill Sunnis. Persians will kill Arabs, Arabs will kill Persians. And if you think that 1.5 million people who died in that war, that 8-year Iran-Iraq war was a lot, this will be a this will eclipse it, okay? The only reason they stopped that war is because they ran out of bombs. It's the only reason. Most Shiites live in Iran and Iraq. Most Shiites in the world. Sunnis are by far the largest population of Muslims, by far. Most Shiites live in Iran and Iraq and a couple other countries. There's a lot of them in Lebanon, and I think Qatar has a lot of them, smaller countries. But the rest of the Muslim world is Sunni. And remember, Sunnis and Shiites hate one another. And Sunnis are the ruling class in Iraq. So let me ask the question. Do you think that the rest of the Sunni Arab world will let the Persian Shiites crush and kill the Sunni ruling class of Iraq? No, that's not going to happen. Do you think the Arabs will let the Russians occupy an Arab country? That's not going to happen. It's never happened. If the policeman leaves, all hell will break loose. 1.5 million dead will be a drop in the bucket. Now, you may say, well, Strong, what are you stirring this pot for? You don't know this, which is true. I don't know this. This is what I believe will happen. But please don't blame me for stirring the pot, because all I'm doing is I'm lifting the lid on this toilet, okay? And friend, it hasn't been flushed for quite some time. Don't blame me for lifting the lid. When naked orphan children run in the streets as oil wells burn and pollute our earth, when the part of the civilized world where civilization started resembles a scene from Mad Max, what then? Do we go back and try to restore order? Restore order again? I mean, Obama pulled most of the troops out of Iraq, and we went back again, okay? All right.